So this is our final screencast on rhetoric and the rhetorical triangle. In this case, we're going to be looking at the modes and aims of, well, primarily the aims of discourse with a nod toward the modes, both according to, once again, Professor James Knievy. So primarily his language and formulations. You can see here we have the basics of our rhetorical triangle are present. The encoder, the speaker or writer, and appeals based on the encoder are ethos, use ethos in our ethical appeals. We have the decoder, the reader or readers and or audience, and appeals based on the decoder are pathetic appeals. They use pathos. And finally, then we have reality, which is the subject, the aspect of reality that is being discussed. And appeals based on that reality are logical appeals and use logos. So what we're going to look at here is the aims of discourse. What happens when the purpose of a particular piece of writing is focused primarily on one of these elements? When we focus on the encoder, on the speaker or writer, and the expression of their feelings, getting out there what I believe or what I'm feeling or what's happened to me, the result is expressive writing. And expressive writing, according to Knievy's, he uses glass metaphors for each of these, is like a mirror that reflects the individual so that the individual is able to see themselves in it and others are able to see them in it. These expressive writing take the form of creeds, manifestos, journals, diaries, autobiography, memoir, political platforms is another popular type of common type of expressive writing that people are familiar with. The goal is to express the beliefs of a particular group and candidate or group of candidates. Next, the reality-based writing that focuses especially on the subject, the aspect of a reality being addressed, is informational writing. Its purpose is to communicate as clearly as possible what the information the encoder wants to send to the objective information the encoder wants to give to the audience. This is the expository aim, and the production is informational writing. And informational writing Knievy compares to a clear window that allows you to look out on something else. It has a frame, so it focuses your attention on something specific, but the glass, when it's clean, it's almost like it isn't even there, and you're seeing through it to something else. The focus is not on the writing, it's not on the writer, it's not on the audience, it's on the subject. The lowest level and most basic of this type of writing is the encyclopedia. Okay, it's objective, no opinions, we don't care who wrote it, we generally don't even know. And it simply conveys information. News articles, when they stick to simple reporting, are very much the same. They're also informational. Scientific writing refers to scientific or academic writing whose primary purpose is to explain an idea, and any argument that accompanies it, proving that idea, is aimed at helping the reader to understand the idea better and understand why the scientist or academic or the academic scientist believes what they believe. So the purpose is informational or explicatory. Expository means both to inform and to explain. When we come up to the decoder, communication that is focused on the decoder is persuasive writing. We are targeting the decoder and we are hoping to change their minds or even more difficult, their behaviors. The goal is to influence others. Knievy compares this to having a shard of glass that is used to persuade. Metaphor is a bit of a stretch, but these types of writing are both high and low. It extends from editorials and op-eds, which are often very articulate and use all three types of appeals and do their best to be balanced and intelligent in their articulation, and includes legal speech. Courtroom debate is definitely persuasive communication. Political debate is persuasive communication. Advertising is often a lower form of not political, persuasive communication that focuses nearly entirely on pathetic appeals. And then finally, we have the fourth the fourth aim of writing, the aesthetic aim, which produces literary writing. And the glass metaphor here is a stained glass window. A stained glass window's primary purpose is to be admired for its artistry and beauty. And so when we think of traditional literary forms, novels, poetry, plays, short stories, we are in the aesthetic mode and we are dealing with literary writing. In reality, especially in modern society with a large literate public, literary writing, to my mind, the aesthetic aim splits into two groups. One is literary with a capital L, which is more self-conscious and is aimed at creating an object of art. It's something that is to be primarily to be admired for its artistry and beauty, and the goal is to create something beautiful more than necessarily to entertain. And then the second is using those same techniques and forms to entertain, primarily to entertain the audience. And I don't think either of these modes is higher or lower than the other. They just are. I have great respect for those who do either one well, and I think they overlap a lot more than some people like to admit. Okay, so we're going to discuss just briefly the modes of writing to finish this up. Kenevi's modes of writing are more controversial these days. There are a number of reasons that people think of them differently, but I find them useful, even so. And so we're going to look at them briefly. First, you have narrative writing. When you are in the narrative mode, you are telling a story. It is a dynamic mode. That is, the writing demonstrates change, and it is associated with both chronological movement and with causality. The second mode is descriptive writing. Descriptive writing seeks to provide details about the nature of something, to tell you what something is. It is static, it's a snapshot at a given moment, and does not demonstrate change. Generally, it is focused on a hold-apart organization. That is, we look at one thing and its parts in order to determine what it is. Classification is another static genre. It also does not demonstrate change. It seeks to define an object or person not in terms of itself, but in terms of other objects or people. That is, it seeks to demonstrate the groups that pertain to a given object or person and to define the object by those groups. When we talk about the genres that a given novel or film fits into, we are doing classification. We are applying labels based on groups that a given item belongs to in order to better understand it. There is an inherent element of comparison in classification. A classification can also go in the other direction, defining a group by providing examples that demonstrate, individual examples that demonstrate what that group is. For example, if you want to understand comedy, I can explain it to you using Monty Python. That would be a classification if I were to finish that. Finally is evaluative. In the evaluative mode, you are dealing with the quality of something. Now, it could be a performance, could be an actual object. If you're really mean, I suppose it could be a person. We won't do that in this class, but it's possible. And it is dynamic. It demonstrates change, and you present your criteria and then justify them, and then describe why something is good or bad. So, there you have it. You'll write one of each of these, a narrative paper, a descriptive paper, a classification, and an evaluation this semester. And that is James Kenevi's modes and aims of writing.